this is Paul Gale from paulgalenetwork.com, and thank you for joining me today for video game sales. It is March 3rd, 2022, and in today's video, we are going to check out the hardware and software charts in Japan for that week of February 21st through February 27th. This is courtesy of Famitsu. We're going to look at hardware first, then do software. The number one best-selling console of the week was the Nintendo Switch, which moved 70,232 units. Second place goes to PlayStation 5, which did 17,032 units. The Xbox Series came in at third, moving 4,285 units. The Nintendo 3DS came in at fourth, which did 511 units. And in fifth place was the PlayStation 4, which sold 17 units. It's a pretty good week in terms of some balance. Yes, it's still the same order of Nintendo Switch, PS5, etc. However, when you look at the percentage of what sold per console compared to the overall total, it's not that bad. Everything did relatively okay. We saw some increases in a couple, some drops in the other. Let's go over this a little bit more. The Nintendo Switch sold comparatively well to how it did last year for this week. Last year it did 78,000 for this week. This year it did 70,000. So a small drop, but not bad. It is a decent drop from last week's 96,000, but when you compare it to last year's 78, not bad. On the PS5 side of things, it's almost half of last year's, unfortunately. It is a drop from last week's 25K, but also not horrible. 17 is respectable. It's above 10, and that should be like the bare minimum, in my opinion. Xbox Series, it's definitely doing better than last year. Microsoft, I think, is having more and more confidence week in and week out, so is more often than not, shipping several thousand units to Japan because they know, hey, they're going to sell. There's some kind of demand that we're not going to lose money pumping out 5,000 a week and then having stock full of them on store shelves. No, they're probably going to sell out each week, so that's good for Microsoft. That 4,200 is only a little bit off of the last week 4,799. The Nintendo 3DS, it's actually kind of impressive that there's still this many out there in Japan. The system is out of production. Last year it did 673 for the week. This year for the same week 511. That's up from last week's 364. PlayStation 4, that's a system that it's also kind of interesting to see just how many units are left, but also how much longer Famitsu is going to keep track. Big drop from last year, 3,217. That's pretty significant, right? I mean, that's not too far from Xbox Series, a brand new console's numbers. But 17 over 11 last week, definitely a system that's on its way out. But hey, it had a good run. If you look at the digital to physical breakdown in regards to the PlayStation 5, physical edition, where it consumes discs, greatly outpaced the digital on the Xbox side of things. These are almost interchangeable week in and week out. It kind of depends on how much Microsoft ships of one or the other. The Series was definitely the favorite. Series S, I should say, was the favored over Series X. On the Nintendo Switch side of things, we've got OLED coming in at first with 32,000, followed by the base Switch at 24, and the Lite at 12,000. So it's a good week, and the rest of March is going to be an interesting one because we just had some heavy hitters drop, and we'll look at that in the software side in a moment. But right at the end of this week, which we'll see in next week's data, will be Triangle Strategy, and a couple of weeks later we'll see Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So there are some exciting things to look forward to, and in 2020 was the wild year where Animal Crossing came out, and it just accelerated Switch growth in March. 2021, we saw another increase in Switch growth thanks to Monster Hunter Rise. Kirby is once again that March game, which probably is going to give a good boost. I keep talking about this. Will it be as significant as a boost as the other two? Probably not, but I wouldn't be surprised to see, all right, that's like a 100,000 plus selling Nintendo Switch week. Maybe. The game's going to do very well, but how will it impact the hardware? I think it's going to do something. Maybe not giant, but something. And Nintendo Switch really has a lot of those titles throughout the year that I think are going to always do those somethings and keep Nintendo Switch from a hardware perspective pretty high selling platform for the year that's going to rival 2021, you know? Software's going to beat it. Hardware, that's going to rival it. Maybe even beat it. We'll see. It's going to be exciting, both in Japan and worldwide, you know? It's also depending on the chip shortage and how many units can Nintendo pump out, but we'll see. On the software side of things, for the week of February 21st through 27th, we've got the #1 best-selling game going to Elden Ring on PlayStation 4 specifically, which did a whopping 188,490. That's the first time in months that we see, two PlayStation games take up the #2 spots. Like, this is impressive. This is something that, whoa, just does not happen very often. But Elden Ring from Software had a long development cycle, a lot of hype behind it, a very good quality game, releasing on multiple platforms. Specifically in Japan, it's PS4 and PS5 where it's going to have the sales. In the United States and Europe and stuff, you're going to see a little bit greater of a divide between how it does on Xbox and PlayStation. But in Japan, especially with Elden Ring not coming out on Nintendo Switch, it's going to do well on PlayStation. And the #2 best-selling game was, the PS5 version of Elden Ring, which moved a pretty considerable 90,017 units. So that's pretty darn good start for the, game itself. And we'll see what the drop-off is, though, because you're going to see Horizon here, and you're going to see Horizon's drop. So probably Elden Ring is going to be comparable, but time will tell. The third best-selling game of the week, Pokemon Legends Arceus, which did 60,754 copies. It's dropping really softly. A 28% drop this far in definitely bodes well for the game. And I'm looking forward to, late April, early May, when Nintendo has its fiscal report, just how well did Pokemon Legends Arceus end up doing for only being out on the market for a couple of months. And of course, we'll also have Kirby numbers and updated Metroid Dread numbers possibly. So good times. #4 goes to Atelier Sophie 2 on PS4. It did 22,104 copies. And then Atelier Sophie 2 on Nintendo Switch came in at 5th. It did 18,912 copies. So combined, the Atelier Sophie 2 titles did 41,000 copies, and that's pretty good. It's kind of within reason of how the franchise would do, what's to expect of the series. Hopefully, the good quality that the games are, from what we're hearing from people, reviewers, fans alike, is that the word of mouth will bode well and have, a little bit more gentle of a drop, and maybe combined, within several weeks' time, it could hit 100,000. I mean, it's already 40% there, but really it needs to have some good word of mouth to drop gently and then do some good for the developer. Let's see how good the sales could be for Koei Tecmo with this one. In 6th is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, still on there, doing 13,055 units for the week. In 7th is what I was talking about, Horizon Forbidden West, specifically the PlayStation 4 version. You see that it dropped 76%. Very comparable with what games of a first player, single player kind of title, story driven game do in Japan, and in the world for that matter. Unless if a game is really big and has a really strong community of multiplayer support, this kind of range is a reasonable drop to expect. The PlayStation 5 version of Horizon Forbidden West is nowhere to be found on the top 10, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhere in the top 30. And hopefully this is a game that, has some decent legs too, because it is a good game. I have it specifically on PS5. I've been enjoying it. But you can see just how much bigger of a deal Elden Ring was over Horizon Forbidden West. I mean, Horizon Forbidden West, with its first and second week combined on PS4, did just under 60,000. Elden Ring in its debut weekend did 188,000, right? Giant difference of 128,000. So, yeah, hopefully Horizon doesn't get buried too badly, but I could also see that it'll probably drop off of this top 10 by next week, but we'll see. Mario Party Superstars came in at 8th, doing 9,851. It's on its way to doing a million physical alone in Japan. That's impressive. In 9th was Tuken Ranba Warriors for Nintendo Switch, which did 9,731 copies. And in 10th place, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which actually increased by 4% over its previous week, and it sold 9,669 copies. Overall, in the top 10, you have a little bit of a variety. You've got 3 PlayStation 4 titles, 1 PlayStation 5 title, and 6 Nintendo Switch games. So, like I said, between hardware and software, you had a little bit of variety. The pie is kind of a little bit more shared evenly than just complete Nintendo domination. So that's kind of a good thing to see, that everyone is kind of succeeding, right? That's going to do it today for Video Game Sales with Polygale Network. Thank you, Chris1964 from the InstallBaseForum.com forums for nicely putting this list together, both the hardware and software charts. I appreciate it. Always looks good with updated values and so forth. And yeah, any comments below are always appreciated. Look forward to talking to you all. Hope you all have a good one. And I gotta say, happy 5th birthday to Nintendo Switch. I'll have a separate video on that later. Alright, take it easy, everybody.